We've asked you to give us quick ideas for quick tips, and you've been doing that. One of you, one of our subscribers in fact, asked, how do you do nocturnes? Well, let's take a look at that one. So if you don't know what a nocturne is, it's a little painting, or a big painting, I guess it doesn't have to have a particular size to it, that suggests night, something about night. The idea of nocturnes first started with music, when there would be a little short musical piece usually, and Chopin is one of the musicians, or one of the composers who's most famous for his nocturnes. That's a short musical piece that suggests something about night, or giving a feeling of night. And then painters, of course, are fascinated with the idea of painting night. And that's usually what we mean when we say nocturne. Now, there are many ways that we see night. We see night, what we see in night, we see because of light coming from somewhere. A little bitty light, not big lights like we have in the daytime. So the light's either coming from the moon, or it could be coming from the moon and the stars in a really bright light, or it could be coming from street lights, or in the case, it could be coming from any kind of artificial light. It could be coming from a bonfire. So there are all kinds of lights that could be producing a night scene. Now we've got four different kinds of night scenes here. Here's one that's obviously fog, and when it's really foggy at night, whatever light you have is going to be dispersed. It's going to make everything to feel brighter than it really is. So that's really fun to paint. And then we have here a really clear night where we have just the moon, and when that happens, you find that everything kind of falls into silhouette. And the sky, when we have a really full moon, oftentimes you see the sky is just kind of grayish blue. And then if you have water, you'll see that reflecting on the water. You see various kinds of things. Here, though, we have a little bit different thing because we have a harbor that's lit up. Lots of orange stuff showing there. So sometimes when you have lots and lots of lights at night, you're going to have some colors visible. But when you have just a tiny little light, you won't have very much color visible at all. So here we have, these are artificial lights. You have multiple lights, but still a very dark night, and so not very much color visible. So rather than say this is the way you do a nocturne, I'd like to make a suggestion for you, because how you do your nocturnes is going to depend upon what you observe. But if you feel uncomfortable at how to get started, let me make a suggestion for you. To get started, first of all, go outside start with the moonlight. Go outside when the moon is when there's a full moon especially, and it'll be very bright. Observe, look for color. You won't see very much color. So things that you're accustomed to see, if it's in the woods, things that you're accustomed to seeing green, you're going to see now that they look sort of gray-blue. Or you'll see for yourself, depending on how bright that moonlight is. Notice how color changes, and notice what the moon is actually doing as far as the light is dispersing. How bright is it right around the moon, and then how does it gradate into distance. Now, the best way to really get started with doing a nocturne is to use a single color. Just do the whole painting. We call that a monochromatic painting, when you're using just one color, a single color of various values. So I'll just give you a couple of keys, and I think a good way to start out with that is to start with a scene that's in the sunlight. How would that look at night? So I want to give you just a very short demonstration. First of all, the values at night are all very close, and they're all on the dark side. Rarely are you going, well, except for the light itself, the tiny little lights themselves, whatever those lights happen to be, those are the only things that are going to be light, or maybe things that they might be reflecting on really strongly, such as the light reflecting on the water here. But the light, the amount of light is going to be very small, and more centrally located. And so I would start out with ultramarine blue, which is very dark, as you know, a very dark transparent blue. And I say ultramarine blue because it's a more subtle blue and easier to work with. And then I would mix into the ultramarine blue. In this case, this is the transparent oxide red by Rembrandt, but you could use burnt sienna or burnt umber. Mix a little bit of either burnt umber, burnt sienna, transparent oxide red, quinacridone, burnt orange, one of those really, really dark orangey colors. A little bit of that into blue, into Apollo blue, just to bring it to kind of a grayish blue. So that's what I'm doing first here. Just bringing that blue, making that blue a grayish blue. And we do have a term. We call that grayish blue kind of a Payne's gray blue. So I have it right here. Now, if you want to know, before you start painting, know what color you're dealing with, you could simply take a piece of paper and put that on the piece of paper like that. Take a little bit of white, and clean the palette knife off here. Take a little bit of white and mix into that on this piece of paper. You see there, I have a very, very bluish gray. Now, what I'm going to do now, I'm going to mix a value of that blue-gray that would be considered the lightest value we would use in a painting, in a Nocturne painting, except for the light. So that's just to help me to control it. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take a little bit of that gray and I'm going to add just enough white. Let's get it right here. This is just for starters. I'm going to add just enough white into this gray to make it a middle value, a dark middle value. See, that wouldn't be it. That's not it. That's still too dark. So put just a little bit more, pull it right in here, pull the light into the dark until I get it about middle value. So that's about what I need right there. That's a little bit darker than what we consider middle value. You can tell that by the value of my palette. Now, let's see, I'm going to hold this right here. Now watch. I'm going to hold this from the back of my palette, and if I'm going to hold this in front of the photographs I have here, especially this one right here, you see the sky right there? Well, actually, this is a little bit lighter. But you see that sky right there is about in the same value range as the color I have here. The sky in this one is the lightest part of the Nocturne. Actually, here the sky is much darker because that's much darker night, obviously, and the light is coming from the artificial light rather from the sky itself. So the sky is not being lit. Here, if you hold it here, if you squint, you'll see that it is pretty much in the same value range as that fog. So I could even get this a little bit darker if I wanted to. That's the way to do it. So this is where my limitation is, and this I will not go beyond as far as how light the colors will be, or the values will be in that scene. So that would be step one. This would be the lightest color you'd have in the scene until you put the actual light in. Okay, I'm going to do just a very quick and dirty little demonstration for you using this photograph right here. So what we'll do here, first of all, I'll just make ourselves a little bit of a format. I'm going to make this very small. So I'm just going to make myself a little rectangle right here. And then I'm going to use this as my guide. I'm going to take this scene and make a Nocturne. So make this my guide. So I'm just going to have a little bit of, we'll have this sort of little pasture area doing this, like this, sort of like that. And then we have that sort of tree, the trees. Now if you'll notice, well, I'll talk about that in just a moment, what happens to the trees. What happens to the trees when they're in a Nocturne. So I'll just sort of indicate here a little bit what the tree line would be doing. I'll check up a composition to be sure that I don't have any areas that are the same width. Not that that makes so much difference, but it does a little bit in for the Nocturne. Now let's see. Now I'm going to go kind of backwards on this. So what I want to do is first of all I want to observe what's happening here in this night scene. So what's happening there? All the trees are in silhouette. All the trees are very, very dark. The sky is the lightest part. And so I'm saying, okay, that's not very light at all. So I'm going into this dark of the sky. And you see it also doesn't have a whole lot of gradation. Even though we have that bright moonlight there, it doesn't have, well, if you were looking at the sky in the bright moonlight, you will see a little bit of gradation. But don't get too carried away with this. So we're just going to do that. This is sky. Just going to throw this in as our sky. And we'll just do that very quickly here. Let's just get this, put this in work mode. Just throw this guy in pretty much straight from the palette, and it's not going to get we won't have the horizon there if we don't have any light coming down. If it depends on what part of the night it is, as to how much of the sun underneath us, underneath the earth there, is going to be reflecting back into the sky. Yeah, in some cases if it's just before sun, just right after sundown, you might see some. If it's not, well, you just go by your observation. What do you see? Okay, next, what about what's happening on the earth, on the ground? Now, I have seen when the moon has been really, really bright, I have seen it actually cast shadows from trees on the ground. However, if we put this moonlight right over here, well, it wouldn't necessarily be throwing any cast shadows in this direction. So let's keep this demonstration pretty straightforward, just for the sake of your having a little simple principle to get you started doing nocturnes. Now, so the earth itself, or the surface, is going to be a little bit lighter. The moonlight's going to shine. The moonlight is shining on it. We can take this information from right in here. Actually, did I say lighter? I meant darker. So we'll throw this earth into a little bit darker. Depending on what's going on there, you might see some moonlight reflecting on the pasture itself. So I'm not going to make any theoretical promises here. You go by your observation of moonlight, but just for doing a straightforward translation like this of a monotone study, where you create a nocturne based on some simple photograph you have, just go by observation of some other photograph of night scene that you might have, and that will help you get started. And so there would pretty much interpret what's going on in that pasture, just a value or two darker right here. I'll give it a little bit more, gives some variation there. Okay, now what about the trees themselves? Well, I'm going to pull all the light out. I'm going straight into this dark mixture, because the trees themselves, as we observe here, pretty much fall into silhouette. So they're going to not have very, if any, depending, again, I have seen tops of trees lit by moonlight, depending on the moonlight, but the tops of the trees, or the trees themselves, most likely are in silhouette. On a typical night when there is a full moon or a partial full moon, those trees are going to be pretty much in silhouette. And don't let me forget to put the moon in. Now, putting the moon in before now would not have been a bad idea too, but you can do it either way when you're doing an exercise like this. Because mainly what you're doing, an exercise like this, simply teaches you about the value, the very, very close value in the dark side, or on the dark side, or the shadow side. These are all shadow values, in fact, of the shadow side of the value scale. So we don't have the variation of value in a nocturne that you'll have in a daylight scene, or in a scene where you have dispersed light, because you have a single light source, a single tiny light source that's not dispersing a lot of light. You notice as I'm closing this in, now notice how that's looking more and more like a dark night. Just the single value. Now, as a usual thing, depending, as I said before, you might not see very much color at all in a night scene like that. Okay, so I'm going to say because I'm going to take advantage of this little white spot right there and say, okay, that's going to be the moon. Now the moon, I'm going to bring some white over here and just going to barely touch. It always has amazed me too how a tiny light can illuminate the whole scene. And I want to get rid of these other little spots of light because they do influence the whole scene, as you notice. Now we could say there's lots of stars out and we could put stars in. I won't do that though. Now we could do a big moon, but I'm going to make it a tiny moon. We're going to do give a little bit of moonbeams, and what I'll do there is just go up and get a little bit of that blue from the sky mixture and mix it into the white I'm using, and just sort of blend around the edges a little bit. Difficult for you to see because it's such a tiny area, but you don't want that to be just a white spot. You don't want it to look like a white polka dot in the sky. So now, yeah, I see that I need to close in some, because you see how now all these little bits of light, you see how they all affect, they're all obvious, they're all because of it being dark and at night. Every little bit of light, it comes from anywhere, even animals' eyes in the woods. Every little bit of light that comes from anywhere is going to then be obvious because everything else is dark. So anyway, to get you started, if you're really interested in painting nocturnes, to get you started, I highly advise doing a monochromatic painting such as I've done here, basing maybe even the color and the value on pictures you've taken yourselves, or go online and find pictures of nighttime pictures that you can absolutely, that you can observe and apply to your nocturne study, and that will give you a long way. Now what you'll find is it's going to be very difficult painting at night because you got to have your palette lit, so you have to work all those things out, and perhaps that's for another day. So if you enjoyed this quick tip, you found it helpful, I bet you would find helpful the full online video tutorials we have at DianeMize.com. If you haven't already checked those out, go give them a gander. You might find something there that you'll find helpful. And also, if you have something that you'd like for me to do a quick tip on, something that you have a question about, leave a comment right down here. Let us know about it. And there's your quick tip.